The Shooting Range. In this episode, pages of history, naval calibers reach land, Squadmates dominating Normandy, and metal beasts, a step towards the legendary Kaira. The MiG-27K Kaira has long carried the fame of one of the most dangerous attack aircraft in War Thunder. This machine, developed on the base of a pure fighter, has become an excellent ground vehicle hunter. How did this unusual transformation begin? The first member of the 27 family happened to retain the old index, and today we'd like to take a look at its complicated character. Please welcome the MiG-23BN, a part of the German tech tree. Its propulsion is provided by a turbojet engine with an afterburner. The fuel is stored in 8 self-sealing tanks. The wing sweep angle can vary between 16 and 72 degrees. Its fixed armament is a 23mm autocannon with 200 rounds of ammo. The aircraft can also carry conventional bombs and rockets of various calibers, incendiary bombs, gun pods, and guided air-to-surface missiles. The MiG-23BN is inferior to all other machines of its family in air combat. It has neither a radar system nor guided air-to-air missiles. However, thanks to outstanding dynamics and a good maneuverability level, it can feel pretty confident in its lower BR battles. Just make sure you keep some distance between you and your enemies to have enough time to dodge their missiles. You can also augment your own firepower with a couple of gun pods. They bear almost no effect on speed, so it makes all the sense to improve both the salvo weight and total ammo count. Okay, with air combat it's pretty clear, but this metal beast is an interim step between a fighter and a strike aircraft. How close did it get to the Kaira's efficiency in mixed battles? The answer's complicated. On the one hand, the only guided type of munitions the German MiG has is 2 Ka-23M missiles with manual guidance. Unfortunately, it's one of those cases where guided doesn't mean high precision. You can achieve hits with these, but it takes quite a bit of skill. On the other hand, the MiG-23BN has a much lower battle rating compared to the 27, so you might be pretty successful at employing conventional armament, especially with a ballistic computer to help your aim. Our choice is the 500-kilogram bombs as well as the S-8 and S-24 rockets. You can combine them any way you want, even with the aforementioned Ka-23. The tactic is pretty simple. Suppress enemy air defenses with guided missiles, drop the bombs on groups of tanks, and reap some lighter targets with rockets. Much like in air combat, the main danger here is guided missiles. You need a good amount of speed to dodge them, but accelerating too much on a supersonic jet in a dive often ends in a premature, catastrophic landing. So try to find a balance. Employ your brake flaps while diving and use the afterburner to exit the dive at the lowest possible altitude. That's how you can enjoy ground attacks with the MiG-23BN just as much as with its successors. The Su-152 self-propelled howitzer was once nicknamed the Beast Slayer by the soldiers, and for good reason. The then-new howitzers debuted during the Battle of Kursk, where their 152mm cannons basically crushed the armor of all German tanks, including Tigers and Panthers. The Su-152 had no armor-piercing rounds at first, but a 43-kilogram high explosive was still pretty reliable at incapacitating enemy machines. Still, the howitzer's main purpose was attacking pillboxes and other fortifications, not hunting armored game. Although quite successful, the tank destroyer role was improvised. It was a mirror image of a situation that took place in 1941, when the Germans threw 105 and 150mm calibers against the Soviet KV and T-34 tanks, in addition to their 88s. Meanwhile, the development of the Tiger led to the creation of a whole class of beast slayers. We've already talked about heavy machines, the IS-2 tanks, so today we'd like to tell you about the Su-85 and the Su-100. It all started in 1941 when the Soviet Army studied a trophy Stug 3. The new machine was very impressive. Before studying it, the engineers had been designing turreted SPGs on the base of the T-34. But after that, the Army expressed interest in a turretless assault gun with a low profile. So, in late 1942, a new vehicle entered mass production, the Su-122, a Soviet assault gun. It turned out to be a decent machine, staying useful throughout the war, but it came with its fair share of flaws. The engineers had to remake the combat compartment multiple times, and yet the service version stayed pretty cramped. Moreover, the howitzer design inherited some traits of the towed version. The handles for elevation and traverse guidance were on opposite sides of the gun, which meant the SPG had to be crewed by 2 gunners. The Su-122 didn't last long in production. The Tigers debuted in late 1942 and rendered it useless. The heat rounds were very hard to land right, while the frag ones didn't have enough explosives. There's a documented fight where an Su-122 hit a Tiger's turret 6 times. 3 rounds only left small dents, 2 produced cracks, and only the 6th one penetrated the turret. Suffice to say, it was not impressive. Despite all its flaws, it was the Su-122 that became the base for a new self-propelled gun. All it had to upgrade was the weapon. It didn't take the Soviets long to find one. The 85mm anti-air gun managed to pen the Tiger from 1.5 kilometers away at a shooting range. It was quickly adapted into tank and SPG cannons. This is how the Su-85 and the IS-85 were made, but soon their paths diverged. It didn't take the Army long to realize that the 85mm caliber was a temporary solution. It was good against the Tiger, but the Panther's frontal armor stayed nigh impenetrable. The IS rearmament process experienced no issues since its turret was big enough to house the 122mm D-25 gun. The Su-85, however, was too tight and overloaded for it, so the engineers opted for a lighter alternative, the 100mm D-10 gun. It was a new caliber for the Army. The 107mm guns were familiar since those were tested on the KV-2, but the 100mm ones came from the Navy. The D-10 had a lower mass than the IS-2's main caliber and used quick-firing rounds, improving the rate of fire. It did bring some issues, however. Since it was a naval weapon, it had no armor-piercing options at first. The earliest ones were only made available in late 1944, so an interim Su-85M was made, sporting the new armor, but lacking the new weapon. The Su-100 took some time to reach mass production, but it lasted quite a while. The last batches were finished as late as in 1948. They were supplied to many nations, with Czechoslovakia even launching its own licensed production. The Su-100 took part in many local conflicts, staying in service all the way to 1997. Quite a feat for a World War II machine, don't you think? We'd like to continue discussing pair tactics on War Thunder ground maps, and today's highlight is the sunny Normandy that many of our players favor. Tactic number 1 is suitable for both sides. Choose the respawn point closest to the town. One of the players drives along the second ring to the central exit, this vertical line on the map, while the other one heads for the monument. Once you're in position, you can organize crossfire, blocking the enemy from capturing the monument area, the central point, and some bypasses, depending on the side. Once the first wave of enemies is dealt with, the player from the vertical line can quickly cap point B and return to their position for further defenses. If your team was unsuccessful in other directions, the entire squad can move to point A, no matter which side you're on. To do that, just swap your positions. The one who occupies the vertical line should move to the monument, since that would give them more chances to help their squad mate who's going to go down to the beach at the same time. Scenario number 2 is different depending on the team you're on. If you start on the left, choose the lower spawn point and head for the enemy point C. It wouldn't be too hard to cap it with just 2 tanks when you have the surprise effect. This higher area allows you to control roads leading to the town, the monument, and the central square. What's extra nice about this position is the enemy sides you're going to see and hit when they advance. Once you run out of targets, one of the players can go down to the town and clear up some side streets while being covered by the other. If the battle starts well, you might not even need to cap a second point. The enemy will have no safe advance lines left, and your allies will have all the chances to control the rest of the town. Let's move on to the team on the right. Spawn on the town entrance. Much like before, one of the players needs to drive to the monument, while the other one should drive to the beach and hang around the rocks. Your main task here is to stop the advance along the embankment. This way, your squad mate can concentrate on other approaches to the town with no distractions. Once the first wave of enemies is done, the beach player can move towards Point A, supported by the Monument ally, and cap it. The enemy will, of course, try to take it back, but they'll have little chance. The beach player has enough cover to hold their ground, and the area a bit further from the embankment can be controlled by the player next to the Monument. By the way, if you run out of enemies in the town, you can try to capture Point B and drive closer to your squad mate along the embankment. Of course, just about anything can go against the plans in battle, so there's always room for impromptu decisions. Don't be shy about changing or combining the tactics we offer. In any case, the best advantage you can have is support and coordination. That's how any squad can be equal to a dozen loners in any combat. Well, now it's time for us to answer some of the questions you left in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Dragoon Oli. What bomber has the most guns? Hi there, Dragoon. If you only count the defensive armament installed in turrets, the record holder is the German BV-238 with its 18 guns. If you also include the forward-firing artillery, the American A-26B-50 has the same number. An Orange Carrot asks, French P-47 or French Yuck-3? Hi, Carrot. The Yuck-3 is a pure fighter and shows good performance in air combat, but it's far from the best choice for ground attacks. The P-47 is a more versatile aircraft. It's both strong in air combat and has some bombs for enemy tanks. Another question comes from Skies GZ. So, in real life, a Maverick missile can't track at night without a TV pod? Hi there, Skies. War Thunder offers a realistic rendering of guided munitions. TV seekers without infrared sensors cannot be used at night. Moreover, they can't even be employed in the dusk. Stephen Hussey writes, is the A4E better as a fighter or a bomber? Hello, Stephen. The A4 is a strike aircraft, and we think it's closer to a bomber than a fighter. And the last comment for today was written by Captain Frostbite. Can you do a Metal Beast about the different CV-90 models? Hi, Captain Frostbite. The updated CV-9105 was a recent guest in the Metal Beasts, in the Shooting Range episode 321. Check it out if you missed it. We may get to the older 120mm model sometime in the future. That's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to give your squad mate a friendly hug, leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.